I'm chairman of the Big Country Athletic Hall of Fame. And, you know, you ever thought, I was thinking as I was driving down here, you know, why, well, first of all, I was wondering how many museums we have in Taylor County. And I don't have the answer to that, I have no idea. But you ever think what the purpose is? And obviously, it's like the Buffalo Gap Historic Village to help us remember what a time used to be like, or a collection of great art like they have here. But the Big Country Athletic Hall of Fame, we're a little bit unique in that our mission is to recognize and honor the great athletes and coaches that have come through the Big Country. And if we didn't do that, and we didn't have that, then quite frankly, a lot of that would be lost in time. And we ought to remember the great accomplishments. I'll talk some about some of the people we have in the Hall of Fame, but I want to give you a little history of how we got where we are. In 1988 and 89, the Abilene Independent School District, under then Athletic Director Greg Ferris, started a Hall of Fame they called the Athletic Hall of Honor. And they had it just 2 years, and they inducted the first 10 people into it. People like legendary coaches at Abilene High, Chuck Mosier and Blackie Blackburn, Jack Mildred, the great quarterback in Cooper, Olympic pole vaulter Billy Olson, tennis player Rick Myers, Dan Salkeld, who was on the 1923 state championship team at Abilene High. And so anyway, they inducted 10 people into that, and then, as happens with school districts, a new superintendent came in, and he didn't have any interest in continuing the Hall of Fame, and so it died. Never was a museum, nothing happened. So I was a sports editor of the Abilene Reporter News at that time, and I always thought, I was on the selection committee for those initial two classes in 1988 and 89, and I wrote a couple times, we ought to have a Hall of Fame to honor the athletes and coaches that have come through here. Well, in 2002, I left the newspaper in 2001, and Nancy Popp, who was working for Texas State Technical College, called me one day with a question about putting on a golf tournament for a fundraiser for their scholarship program. And me and my big mouth, I said, well, you know, Nancy, what we really ought to have is a Hall of Fame. Well, one thing led to another, and we started the Big Country Athletic Hall of Fame through Texas State Technical College, even though they don't have any sports teams, but it was a fundraiser for their scholarship program. And from 2001 through 2008, we raised about $150,000 for scholarships for the TSTC scholarships through our Hall of Fame dinner. We started to, in 2002, we started the banquet. That first year we inducted 5 people in our inaugural class, and we had just about 150, 200 people at a banquet. It's grown every year. The last year we had over 600 at our banquet. Every year we induct a class into the Hall of Fame. And then after we'd done it a couple years, inducting, well, let me go back to where we were, how we decided what to put in. We took the 19 counties as the West Central Texas Council of Governments. So it's Knox City to the north, down to Brown County. So basically an 80-mile radius around Abilene. And so we inducted that first class was Sammy Ball, the legendary quarterback, grew up in Sweetwater, Charles Coody, who won the Masters in 1971 from Stanford, Gordon Wood, the winningest coach in Texas high school football, Mindy Myers. Anybody know who Mindy Myers is? The most decorated athlete in the history of the UIL. 24 times in her high school career, she's from Mundy. They hung a medal around her neck at a state competition 24 times in track, cross country, or basketball. And Don Maynard, the great receiver for the New York Jets from Colorado City. So anyway, we grew from that. One year the officials came to us, the Abilene chapter of officials, and said, you know, we think you ought to recognize officials. So we added a lifetime achievement for officiating to our awards. We added a lifetime achievement for media that we had the option to give. And then 3 years ago, we started the Legacy Award, which could go to an individual or a family. The first inductee as a Legacy Award was the Gerald family, the Pat Gerald family from Sweetwater. Their dad was a coach back in the 40s and 50s. He had a couple sons who were all-state players, and then a grandson who was an all-state player. So those are typical of the inductees. And next year, we're going to add a Legend Award where we're recognizing people we've forgotten about back in before 1950. So there's some great people that have come through. So anyway, so that went along. And then after 2008, George, you're on the board, I believe that's the right year. We started in 2009. The TSTC decided it was taking too much time of their people, didn't exactly fit their mission. And so they were going to back out of it, and we thought, what in the world are we going to do? We still had no museum, basically had no money, and we hadn't tried to raise money except for scholarships. And so we formed a board of directors. George is on the board with me. We formed a board. We formed a 501c3, which means we were a tax-exempt entity. And the Abilene Independent School District gave us the South Hallway, which leads to the athletic director's office. And we raised money through donations to build the cabinets, and we built a museum. And we continue to induct people every year. And then now we're taking it the next step. We are in the process, and it's up and running. It's not complete, but it's up and running. We have a website called the Big Country Hall of Fame.org. And on there, you'll now be able to go to click on to any one of the more than 100 inductees that we've put into our Hall of Fame. You can read a bio about them. You can see pictures of them, and in case we have them, you can see video of them. And we're taking it one step further. It's not up yet, but will be shortly. You'll be able to go and walk into the museum with your iPhone, and you'll see a QR code, just like you see in magazines now. Scan that, and you say, I want to see the QR code and see Sammy Baugh, and you can pick up and see everything that's on the website, right there on your iPhone as you're looking on the computer. So we are taking it the next step, so it's been quite remarkable to what we've been able to do. And the thing I think we're most proud of, that we've done all this without, praise the Lord, no government help. We've done it with really just a group of people that saw the fantastic possibility that this had, and have lent their money, and then with the crowd we brought in at the banquet every year. Our banquet is May the 6th. We've taken it one more step. Our goal, obviously, is to honor and recognize those who have had great accomplishments in sports in the Big Country. But we decided also that we wanted to recognize those for the future. In 2010, Ted and Nancy Popp, who now live in Fort Worth, but Nancy was the original person who helped get it started with me when she was with TSTC, gave a donation to the Community Foundation of Abilene in order to give 2 scholarships each year to graduating senior student athletes from either Abilene ISD or Albany, where they have ties to both of those towns, to give a scholarship. And so they gave 2 $500 scholarships in this will be the 3rd year. Well, our board was so moved by that we also opened up an endowment in the Community Foundation. And in 2011, we gave 4 $500 scholarships. Last year, we gave 8 $500 scholarships. And this year, we're giving 8 more. So now 10 students from the 19-county area around here are receiving scholarships every year to help them go to college. So we've done all of that with what we've done besides recognizing and starting the museum. Stop me anytime if you've got questions. I normally do a talk show on the radio, and I'm used to people asking questions. I'm not expecting what the question is, so I can handle anything. So stop me anytime. Let me tell you who the inductees are in this year's class. And if you want to buy tickets, I can help you out. I've got brochures here. And then I want to tell you just a little bit about some of the unusual inductees that we have, people that maybe you don't know about. I'm going to just give you the cliff notes, the thumbnail sketch of our inductees. One of our inductees this year is Barbara Krausen. She is currently the track coach at McMurray. She coached for a decade at Cooper before that. She spent 32 years in Texas public schools before going to McMurray in 1999. She is unique in a number of ways, but number one is that she is the only female coach in the history of the NCAA, any level, Division I, II, or III, or any sport to win a national championship coaching a men's team. And she's done it twice. She coached McMurray's men's track team to the Division III national championship in 2008, and then she did it again last year. So, quite an accomplishment, Barbara Krause, and she's also becomes the first husband and wife to go in. Her husband, the late Joe Krause, was a football player at Breckenridge and a longtime coach at a number of places, both on the college and high school level, including at Abilene Cooper. And he passed away last summer, but so they will become the first husband and wife ever to go into our Hall of Fame. Our second inductee will be a gentleman named Tony DeGrade from Snyder. Tony DeGrade had maybe one of the greatest individual seasons in college football history. In 1984, he played at the University of Texas, and he was a defensive end. He won the Lombardi Award, which is given to the nation's top lineman. He was a first-team All-American. He was a two-time All-Southwest Conference. He led the team in sacks. In fact, he is 6th all-time in sacks by Texas Longhorn defenders, named the Southwest Conference Most Valuable Player in 1984. He was drafted by the Cincinnati Bengals in the NFL. Then Jerry Don Gleaton is going in. Jerry Don Gleaton is a left-handed pitcher from Brownwood. Maybe the amazing thing about him, besides pitching for 12 years in the major leagues, was he never played high school baseball. Brownwood didn't have a baseball team back then. But he went to the University of Texas, despite not playing high school baseball. Became a first-team All-American, was the Southwest Conference Most Valuable Player as a senior. He pitched in 307 Major League games in all. His best season was 1981. He had 13 saves for the Seattle Mariners. He pitched all but 16, I think, of his games in his career were out of relief. He finished with 15 wins, 23 losses, 26 saves, 265 strikeouts, and a 4.25 ERA. He was a first-round pick of the Texas Rangers in 1979, and ended up pitching for left-handed relievers. You get shopped around. He pitched for the Rangers, the Seattle Mariners, the Chicago White Sox, the Kansas City Royals, the Detroit Tigers, and the Pittsburgh Pirates.
What's his name again?
His name is Jerry Don Gleaton. Jerry Don Gleaton. Jerry Don still lives back in Brownwood. He's assistant baseball coach at Howard Payne now. And in fact, we're kind of excited. We just learned this week that the Brownwood City Council is passing a resolution honoring him for going into our Big Country Athletic Hall of Fame. They're naming one of their baseball fields in their youth baseball complex in honor of him this coming week. Next inductee that we'll have this year is Jonathan Johnson. Jonathan, I think, was involved in all my broadcasting and writing career, the most exciting thing I've ever been involved in. Jonathan was a senior in high school at Abilene High in 2001. And he won the 800 meters at the Class 5A state track meet, breaking the oldest record in existence at the time at the UIL state meet in any classification. He ran a 1:48.21 800 meters. That's getting around the track pretty quickly. And then about an hour later, he anchored the mile relay, and he got the baton about 30 yards back, and he caught the guy and wanted in a photo finish at the tape to give the Abilene High the 1,600 meter or mile relay championship, and that win gave Abilene High the team state championship. Well, he went on to Texas Tech, and he put together really probably one of the great track careers anybody's ever had from this area. He won 9 All-American honors at Texas Tech. He won the 800 meters at the Big 12 championships 4 straight years. His sophomore year, he took second at the NCAA championship in the 800 meters, and in his junior year in 2004, he won the NCAA championship. And then just 3 years out of high school, he won the 800 meters at the U.S. Olympic trials and made it as far as the semifinals in Athens at the Olympics. So quite a career, Jonathan Johnson, and still that was, I remember covering him and thinking, boy, he's really good, but I never dreamed he'd end up being as good as he turned out to be. In fact, in 2004, he had a time of 1:44.7 in the 800 meters. That was the fastest time by any American that year. I mentioned we have a Lifetime Achievement for Officiating, and this year we're going to put in our 7th recipient into that, and that's Dr. Lynn Lawhon, a veterinarian in Abilene. He grew up in Bront. He refereed for a number of years in the Southwest Conference and the Western Athletic Conference, and in 2000 he worked the Cotton Bowl between Arkansas and Texas and thought he was retiring. Well, he did retire with one exception. The NFL kept having lockouts or strikes, and so twice, in 2001 and again last year, he was an NFL replacement official. No, he was not there in that Seattle game where all the controversy, but he worked, he's only one of 5 officials, I think, who worked as a replacement official twice. Then our Lifetime Achievement Award, or excuse me, our Legacy Award this year is going to 3 brothers, the Little Brothers from Abilene High. Anybody remember them? Richard, David, and Mike. They were great basketball players at Abilene High. Richard went on to play at Texas Tech. He helped lead Texas Tech in the early 70s to a Southwest Conference championship, and last year he was inducted into the Texas Tech Hall of Fame. His brother David, who was probably the best one of the bunch, he was the biggest one of the bunch, he was about 6'7", went to Texas Tech and then transferred to Oklahoma, where he led the Big 8 in scoring as a junior and was second in the conference in scoring as a senior and was drafted by the Denver Nuggets. And then the little brother, Mike, who was only about 6'5", went to Baylor and played for 3 years and started. So all 3 played major college basketball after great careers, and David helped lead Abilene High to the state basketball tournament in 1978. That's the last time Abilene High went to the state basketball tournament.
And the little family still playing basketball.
Yeah, well, yeah, if you follow it all, Wiley won back-to-back girls state championships the last 2 years, and the reason? Because Richard's daughter Peyton was the 3A Player of the Year and led him to the title. She's now playing at Texas A&M. And Mike's son was a first-team All-District at Midland Christian this year as a freshman in high school, so the legacy is continuing on. Every year we induct 5 inductees who have to be present. We induct 1 posthumous, and then we have the option of the Lifetime Achievement for Officiating, for Media, or for the Legacy Award. Our posthumous inductee this year is a gentleman named Jim Mallon, who just passed away a little over a year ago. Jim Mallon was a 3-time All-District player at Abilene High in baseball, went on to play at Baylor, and then went to the San Francisco Giants organization for 5 years. And then he got hired in 1971 to be the head coach at Southwestern University in Georgetown. And he never left. From 1971 to 2004 until he retired, his teams won 1,197 games and lost only 601. They finished 3rd in the 1984 NAIA World Series and advanced to 7 NCAA Division III regional championships. 9 times he was the district or conference coach of the year, and 4 of his players went on to make it in the major leagues, including Mike Stanton and Mike Tomlin, who both happen to be from Midland High. And finally, Jakey Sandifer will be inducted. Jakey is from Breckenridge. Jakey knows something about winning. Jakey was a member of 2 state championship teams in Breckenridge in 1952 and 1954. And then he went to Oklahoma. And incidentally, when he was at Breckenridge, they beat Abilene High in 1954, and Abilene High didn't lose for the next 49 games after that until 1957. Jakey went to Oklahoma, and he was part of the 47-game winning streak under Bud Wilkinson at Oklahoma, the college football's longest winning streak of all time. He was a major contributor to that, played running back, scored 2 touchdowns in the Orange Bowl. 1 year, finished 3rd in the nation in punt returns. Another year, he's been a successful oil man since then. And I figured out during all this research why Oklahoma was so good in football in the 1950s. Because he is the 5th guy from the big country that we've inducted into our Hall of Fame. He was recruiting guys from Texas and from West Texas. That's why Oklahoma was so good. Jerry Tubbs from Breckenridge, Bob Harrison from Stanford, Mike McClellan from Stanford, Jimmy Carpenter from Abilene High, and now Jakey Sandifer from Breckenridge, all members of the Big Country Athletic Hall of Fame who all played during that era at Oklahoma. So, in other words, Oklahoma had never been so good if it hadn't been for Texas, right?
Or Breckenridge.
Breckenridge and Stanford helped a great deal, there's no doubt about that. Let me tell you just a few other people that are in our Hall of Fame. And I think, George and I will brag about that, I think we have the greatest Hall of Fame for a local Hall of Fame anywhere in the country. We have so many, we have 4 members of our Hall of Fame who are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Bob Lilly from Throckmorton, Mr. Cowboy, the first player drafted by the Cowboys, the first player of the Cowboys to go into the Pro Football Hall of Honor, the first Cowboy in the Ring of Honor. I mean, he is Mr. Cowboy. Also into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Don Maynard from Colorado City, the great receiver, played with Joe Namath on that Super Bowl team with the New York Jets. Bulldog Turner from Sweetwater, and Sammy Baugh from Sweetwater, who of course played 16 years with the Washington Redskins. In fact, here's, if you want to really whip one on everybody, you got to know who the first 2 coaches were, head coaches of the New York Jets. The first 2 coaches of the New York Jets were Sammy Baugh and Bulldog Turner from Sweetwater, Texas. Now, what are the odds of that? And both are in our Hall of Fame. We have a lot of other interesting, unusual people. Those are people that, you know, those are big names. We have many in our Hall of Fame or in the College Football Hall of Fame. Grant Taft, the legendary Baylor coach, when he went in, this was the 8th Hall of Fame he'd been inducted into. And he said this one was the most meaningful because this was back home. He grew up in Snyder and coached at McMurray. I want to tell you a couple of the unusual ones. Maybe you don't know. And there's always, we think there's always a story. Every story has a tie to the Big Country. The Masters golf tournament is going on right now. 1971, Charles Coody won the Masters. And it wasn't his greatest win. But you know who he beat, who finished second in a tie right behind him that year? Jack Nicklaus and Johnny Miller. So he was beating pretty good company. Do you know the name Mikey Atkins? Mikey Atkins is from the big city of Lorain. If you drive on the interstate, Lorain is your last little blip in the road with a cotton gin before you get to Colorado City. Mikey Atkins went to Texas Tech. She was a first sub off the bench as a freshman in 1992 when they had a player named Cheryl Swoops and they won the national championship. And she continued to play as a 3-year starter after that. And she is the all-time leading scorer in the history of Southwest Conference women's basketball. She will always be the leading scorer in the history of Southwest Conference basketball because there is no Southwest Conference anymore. So she will have that record forever. Emory Ballard. Emory Ballard coached at Breckenridge, and then he went on to San Angelo Central. He won 2 state championships as the coach at Breckenridge, 1 at San Angelo. And then Darrell Royal hired him as an assistant at the University of Texas. After 1 year coaching the linebackers, Texas had a 6-4 season, and that wasn't good enough in Texas standards. And so Darrell Royal shuffled his staff around, and he made Emory the offensive coordinator. And Emory had been tinkering with an idea he had for an offense for a long time. And so that summer, after spring ball, they didn't even work on it in spring ball. Emory got some of the seniors who were still going to summer school, and they got down on the field at Memorial Stadium, and he showed Darrell this idea he had for an offense. And it was a triple option offense. You later became known as the Wishbone. Mickey Herskowitz, the Houston Chronicle columnist, gave it the name because it looked like a wishbone. And as I asked Emory, of course I wrote the book, his autobiography with him, he said, I said, well, how did that work out? He said, well, we lost the first game that fall. We tied the second one, but we won the next 30, including 2 national championships. And then Emory later went on to be the head coach at Texas A&M and at Mississippi State. I'm convinced he's the only guy that's beloved by both Texas and Texas A&M. Otherwise, they couldn't agree on anything. Emory Ballard was just an innovator, a guy who thought differently, and just tremendous. But unlike today, colleges do or pros do something and then it trickles down to the high school. He started something in high school and trickled up to the college level. But tremendous career. I mentioned that Grant Taft is in our Hall of Fame. So is Art Briles, the current Baylor coach, who was RG3's coach at college. He played at Rural, the big city of Rural. I want to just mention a couple others. We have over 100 inductees now. We have a number of golfers, besides Charles Coody, John Paul Kane, Billy Maxwell, Bob Estes is currently playing on the tour. The officials award for the state, for the top official in the state every year is the Curly Hayes Award, named after Curly Hayes, who's a member of our Hall of Fame, who refereed for years and years. Chuck Harrison, who was a teammate of George at Abilene High, I call Chuck the man of first. He went from Abilene High to Texas Tech to play football and baseball. He played for Texas Tech in the first game they ever played in the Southwest Conference in football. And then he became the first Texas Tech player ever to make the major leagues. He played baseball, led the nation in home runs one year, went on, made it to the major leagues. And when he was playing for the Houston Astros, he played in the Astrodome in the first year that it was open. And then he went to the Kansas City Royals and he played in the very first game that the Royals ever played. So he was a man of an awful lot of first in his career. Many consider the greatest game in college football history is the Oklahoma-Nebraska game of 1971, and Nebraska won 35-31, and eventually won the national championship. It was a Thanksgiving Day game. Well, Oklahoma, again, lost 35-31, but 3 touchdowns thrown that day by Jack Mildred, 2 of them to John Harrison, who were teammates in Cooper High School. So again, that Oklahoma-Texas, West Texas connection. And of course, Mildred, I think, was the greatest wishbone quarterback of all time. And John Harrison told me just the other day, I was visiting with John, that Jack, who has since passed away, later was lieutenant governor of Oklahoma, said he went to Oklahoma. He didn't go to Texas because he didn't want to run the wishbone. Then he got to Oklahoma and they switched to the wishbone. Also, in 2006, Dominic Rhodes and Justin Snow from Cooper High School became the first, and until 2 years ago, the only high school teammates to play on a winning Super Bowl team. They played together at Cooper. They were on the Colts winning team. Dominic Rhodes had over 100 yards rushing in that game, and Justin Snow was the deep snapper. Dominic's out of the NFL now. Justin's still playing with the Washington Redskins. They were the only high school teammates to do it until 2 years ago when the New Orleans Saints won it. And they had 2 players from South Lake Carroll. Again, that Texas connection. So they were the first ones to have that. I mentioned Mikey Atkins played at Texas Tech on the national championship team. So did Nikki Heath from Sweetwater. She also was a member of the national championship team. Who else I want to just make a quick mention of? Let's see here real quickly. Unusual stories. I know there was one more I wanted to make mention of.
You might know David Parks.
David Parks is an interesting story. You're exactly right. David Parks was from Abilene High. He went to Texas Tech, and as a receiver was the first pick in the draft. Not a first-round pick, the first pick in the draft by the San Francisco 49ers. And was made the All-Pro rookie team that year, second in the voting for Rookie of the Year. Played 10 years in the NFL, mostly with the 49ers. Finished up with, I believe, the New Orleans Saints. But great career. In fact, oddly enough, in the early 60s, if you remember, when the AFL and NFL were going before they merged, there were 2 drafts. The first pick in the NFL draft in 1964 was David Parks from Abilene High and Texas Tech, and the first pick in the 65 AFL draft was Lawrence Elkins from Brownwood and Baylor. So the first pick in the draft in back-to-back years were from Brownwood and Abilene. So kind of interesting.
Now, one of the interesting things with Parks is for years, he held the record for the longest interception return in Texas Tech history.
Really?
He intercepted one foot in the end zone and took it all the way back.
Can't get any longer.
Playing defense.
Right, because back then you had to be played both ways. Another one of my favorite stories in the Hall of Fame is James Sechrist, and I bet none of you know the name James Sechrist. James Sechrist was from Bangs, Texas, a little town right outside of Brownwood, and he was known as the one-man gang from Bangs. Because make sure I get the right year, in 1954, Bangs won the Class A state track championship, and the reason they won it, he was the only person they had there. He scored 34 points and won the state championship by himself. In fact, when they announced on the PA system down at Memorial Stadium in Texas, said when the Bangs team come up to get their championship, he and the coach went up, and the UIL executive director says, "Where's the rest of your team?" And the coach said, "You only had one track meet, didn't you?" James Sechrist won it himself. Later went on to be a great track runner at ACU and helped run a number of teams relay teams that set world records, and then five world records. And then he coached for years, coached Monahans to a state championship and Odessa College to 11 junior college championships as a track coach. Another interesting story of an inductee. Let me find it. I love this story about her. Cindy Shelton Rotten was from the big city of Avoca. Avoca now they consolidate to make a six-man school with Luters. It's Luters Avoca. She was a great basketball player, went to Wayland Baptist. They were the powerhouse in women's basketball because there wasn't a lot of women's basketball. She was a little guard, and she was on the first team to go to the Soviet Union to play on an exchange trip. And anybody remember the old TV show, To Tell the Truth, where they used to come on? She appeared on that show, and the question they had to guess was she was a basketball player who played. She was on a national championship team there. So again, we have over 100 inductees in their Hall of Fame, and we're proud of it. And I have tickets if you'd like to purchase tickets. The banquet is May the 6th at the Abilene Civic Center, and we'll induct that class that I just mentioned. And again, this is the way we fund our scholarship program and continue to expand the museum. I encourage you to go down. The museum is open free to the public anytime the AISD administration building is open. And pretty soon you're going to be able to go in and click on your iPhone if you're an iPhone person, or your smartphone. I don't know if I'm that smart, but you can click on and watch video and all, and it's a continuing process. We're really proud of what we've been able to accomplish just with a group of people that have seen the vision. And because of what we've done, we've not only recognized the great athletes and coaches of the big country, but we've been able to save that for posterity. And if somebody comes along later on and says, well, what about this great player? We've got that bio information available for them, and they can actually see pictures of them. So it is something we're very proud of. You know, anybody know who Shotwell Stadium was named after? Pete Shotwell. That's the only building in the Abilene ISD history they ever named for somebody while he was still living. It opened in 1959 as Abilene Public School Stadium, and then they named it for Pete Shotwell, who coached there in the 20s and won a state championship, and came back and coached from 46 to 52 until he retired and Chuck Mosher replaced him.
Were you aware that Dan Blocker was inducted into the Hall of Fame
Right.
in Hardin Simmons, and
Yes.
he had played at O'Donnell, Texas, before he came to Hardin Simmons?
Yes, I did know that. That he and Fess Parker both went to Hardin Simmons, so they got a couple great. That reminds me, I need to bring up the last person to mention. Maybe the most fascinating person we have in the Hall of Fame is somebody I've gotten to know very well. I have two things I want to mention. Dean Smith. Does anybody know who Dean Smith is? Not the North Carolina basketball coach. Dean Smith grew up on a ranch between Breckenridge and Graham. Actually, went to high school in Graham. And Dean Smith, in 1952, was on the American 4x100 relay team that won the gold medal at the Olympics in Helsinki. And he finished 4th in the 100-meter dash individually at that same Olympics in Helsinki. And he also played football at the University of Texas, scored a touchdown in the Cotton Bowl, and got drafted by the Los Angeles Rams. Went out to Los Angeles, and then during training camp, they traded him to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He didn't want to live in Pittsburgh, and knew he was a little guy. He probably wasn't going back in the NFL. So he went into Hollywood, and he became one of the most famous stuntmen in the history of Hollywood. He's been in 10 John Wayne movies. He has been he just finished a book, a new book he has out, From Olympic Gold to Hollywood Stuntman is the name of it. It's absolutely fascinating. Your Dan Blocker thing reminded me of it. He's been in, my favorite John Wayne movie is McClintock. How many have seen McClintock? You remember when Maureen O'Hara jumps out of the upstairs window into that haystack? When he's chasing her around town, he's trying to get her to move back? Actually, that was Dean Smith with a red wig on jumping out into that haystack. He was in the Alamo with John Wayne. He's been in a jillion TV shows. He was a stuntman for Roy Rogers, and he became close friends of all of these. And Dean is 81 years old, and I bet he can still beat me in a race.
And has a young son.
And has a son who's an 8th grader, and he's 81.
Oh my God.
Was he here not too long ago?
He was inducted last year in our Hall of Fame,
Okay, yeah.
and he's put on some rodeo. He is in the Texas Cowboy Walk of Honor in Fort Worth. He's in the University of Texas Hall of Fame, the Texas Sports Hall of Fame, our Hall of Fame, the Hollywood Stuntman Hall of Fame. He's absolutely one of the most fascinating people I have ever met.
And he's been a great raiser of funds for cancer.
Oh yeah, he's a cancer survivor, and he has raised a lot of money. He really got involved with that because of John Wayne. And in fact, so just absolutely fascinating. Now I got to tell you one last thing that I'm excited about, but I don't know when it's going to happen. Bob Phillips, in Texas Country Reporter, came to Abilene a couple weeks ago and did a whole segment with me about our Hall of Fame. Well, we're going to be on Texas Country Reporter. They said it'd be 4 to 6 weeks, and that would make it late April sometime. So I don't know when yet. We'll get it in the paper, but I'm excited about it. A little scared to see what I look like on television, but I'm really excited about the possibility and the publicity that will bring. And Bob Phillips was really wonderful. And they ended up spending about 7 hours with us for probably an 8-minute segment. So, but they filmed a lot, 4 hours filming things at our Hall of Fame.
You might mention that the process that will start next October, November, where we will accept nominations. And
Right. We always accept nominations. We have over 100 right now. It's tough to whittle it down. To qualify, you had to have gone to high school or coached in high school in a 19 county area surrounding here. It's the same 19 counties as the West Central Texas Council of Governments, as I mentioned before. And you have to, if you're a player, you had to have been out of high school at least 10 years. And if you are a coach, you had to be out of coaching in that big country high school for at least 5 years. That's really the only qualifications. And we'll have it on our website where you can nominate.
To come to the banquet.
Huh?
You have to be.
And if you're living, if you're posthumous, you don't have to come to the banquet. But if you're living, you have to come to the banquet. That is the requirement. It is, I just think, and George can attest to this, how honored people are when they get a chance to be inducted and honored in their hometown. It's just a terrific thing. And so I'm thrilled that we've been able to do that. And so it is, so you can nominate at any time on our website now. That is up. And then every year we select a new class in January. We have a banquet usually the first Monday in May. This year it's May the 6th.
Do you ever, you have mentioned tennis, do you ever take tennis?
Yes, absolutely. We have Rick Myers, who played professional tennis and played at TCU, is in our Hall of Fame. I believe he is the only tennis at this point, but I'm sure there's going to be some more. But Rick went on and played at Wimbledon and the U.S. Open and played professional tennis. And the only requirement really is to brought fame and recognition to the big country. I'm sure there will be more in the future. So yes, we have tennis, we have track and field, we have basketball, baseball, football, golf. I think what else we have. We haven't had a bowler yet,
I was just thinking.
or a ski shooter. I'm sure we'll have something. A number of. I also serve on the Texas Sports Hall of Fame selection committee. And every year we have a guy that's been nominated that somebody keeps pushing as a mountain climber. So I guess anything is possible. We haven't inducted him yet, but he's climbed the 7 tallest peaks in the world. Other questions? I surely didn't cover it all.
Well, Cindy Shelton from Kentucky.
Pardon me?
You know about Shelton?
Yes,
Is Cindy,
his sister.
His sister.
I don't want to say younger or older, I'm not sure. But his sister, she's now Cindy Rotten, she lives in Roscoe. But yeah, she is Bud's sister. You know, there was that stretch that Avoca was the powerhouse in basketball. Max Williams is in our Hall of Fame.
Yeah, they want to study.
Yeah, and they were great in men and women's basketball. So we're not just an Abilene. We've inducted them from Avoca and Lorain and Mundy. We've gone from the little towns, to Cisco, to Haskell. Yeah, we've all of the towns around Wiley. So and it'll continue to grow and grow. We try to cover a wide-ranging area of men and women. So.
Is Max Williams in your Hall of Fame?
Yes, Max. Not only is in the Hall of Fame, he's on our board of directors too.
Oh, is it?
Max, I didn't mention him, but he is in the Texas Sports Hall of Fame as well. He is the father of pro basketball in Texas. When the ABA first started, he was the first general manager of the Dallas Chaparrals that then became the San Antonio Spurs. In fact, when the Spurs won their first World Championship, he was given a ring for him. But he was a 3-time All-Southwest Conference player at SMU, was a great player. Charles Goody says the greatest basketball player, so he's considered the first high school player ever in Texas to dribble behind his back. He was, if you see him now, you go, how did this guy play basketball? He's about that tall.
That's what I was going to say, he's not that tall, you know.
Charles Goody tells a great story when Stanford was playing Avoca, and said Max would come down the lane, and he'd go up, and you'd slide over to try to get him, and he'd dish off to one of his teammates for a shot on the baseline and make it. So Charles said, I had it figured out. He said, Max came flying down the lane, jumped up in the air. I slid over to intercept the pass. He did a 360 spin and laid it in left hand, and I thought, what the heck with that? I can't stop him anyhow. Yes, ma'am.
What can you tell us about Colt McCoy? He probably doesn't, he's not eligible yet.
Next year.
Really?
Next year, we're already counting down. Yeah, next year he will be eligible 10 years. Colt McCoy, well, to me, will probably go in next year. I mean, it's a selection by committee, but I think he's a slam dunk. Colt, of course, when he finished at the University of Texas, he was the winningest quarterback, as a starting quarterback in the history of college football. Now, the Boise State quarterback has since passed him, but went on and played 3 years with the Cleveland Browns. He's been traded this year to the San Francisco 49ers, which I think is a great move for him. He'll be the backup to Colin Kaepernick and be with a whole lot better team with the 49ers than he was with the Browns. So, yeah, he becomes eligible next year. And that's the great thing about doing this. People always ask me, well, the first question is, aren't you going to run out of names? They just keep coming. After Colt McCoy, the next year is Case Keenum. For Wiley, the all-time leading passer in the history of college football. I mean, the list just keeps going on. John Lackey, yeah. The reason we haven't inducted John Lackey, who now pitches for the Boston Red Sox, is we have our banquet in the middle of baseball season. You have to attend, so we're going to have to wait till he retires to put him in. We just continue with great names, and like I said, we're going to next year start a legend where we start remembering those people from prior to 1950, who probably a majority are deceased, but a chance to recognize and remember them.
Yeah, the 2 boys from Brownwood too, Coach's son, you know,
The South Halls,
that, I don't know, well, they played with, one of them played with Coach in Texas.
oh, Shipley's. Yeah. Now, the oldest one, oddly enough, will not be eligible because he actually played at Vernon before they moved. He played with Cole, Jordan Shipley. But now Jackson did play at Brownwood.
Yeah.
And they may end up being a legacy award winner at some time with Bob, their dad, coaching as well. But actually, Jordan played at Vernon when he was coaching there before they moved to Brownwood. But they have ties, Bob is, their dad's from Roscoe originally, so certainly could be an inductee. And we did it, our second inductee for the Legacy Award was the Southall family. Morris was Gordon Wood's assistant all those years, and then three sons, all quarterback, and two of them won state championships at Brownwood. So that's how Gordon cheated too. He had Morris's sons to be his quarterback.
Well, the McCoys are that way because Burl McCoy played and then
Chance and all that.
what's
Case and Colt and yeah, all of them.
and the grandfather.
Right.
There are a lot of amazing families like that,
Yeah.
some that have coaching. We've got one family here in Abilene. The father was on the first team of Bear Bryant's. He's from Stanford, or from Snyder, and his sons played at Cooper. One of them became the number 2 all-time tackler at
Was
Berry family.
was Powell part of the Junction Boys?
Mhm.
He was part. I knew he played for Bear, but I didn't know he was one of the Junction Boys. He was a survivor of the Junction Boys camp. So we'll never run out of names. We'll continue to have great names, and so I hope you get a chance to go up and see our museum. Like I said, it's open to the public. I've got ticket information if you need anything. If you're interested in coming to the banquet on May the 6th. Thank you. Anything else you need from me?
No, it's.
And I'll be happy to stay around and answer questions. I appreciate it. That's all I've got.
Where is the whole thing?
It's in the AISD Administration Building, 241 North Pine. It's the old, it's they call it 1 AISD. It's in the south hallway. If you go in the door off of North 2nd, it's in all that hallway. You can't miss it. There's big signs, and we have a whole row of cabinets. And it's right there. It's the hallway leading to the athletic ticket office. So everybody that buys an Abilene High Cooper football ticket has to walk right by it. So, anyhow.
You mentioned Greg, that started, where are they now?
Who's that? I'm sorry.
Greg,
Ferris.
Well, Greg Ferris is in Plainview. He is the athletic director at Wayland Baptist. He's been there ever since he left here. In Plainview.
Oh, Plainview.
Plainview. In fact, I talked to Greg just about a year ago. So they're doing well, and their kids are grown, and like the rest of us have got grandkids now.
Yeah, she
his
was on my
wife
staff.
talked for him.
Pardon me?
Linda was on my staff.
Oh, really? Yeah.
She's a real-
Linda, I don't know if she's retired from teaching, whether she's still teaching, but Greg's still athletic director, and Chris, who was on the state championship team at Cooper in baseball, is the assistant athletic director at Plano ISD.
Oh, yeah.
And Chad, I think, is in pharmaceutical sales, and I think he's in the Houston area still. But so I still keep in contact with them occasionally. Thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Like I said, if you need brochure.